This morning from Anna Iarotska. She's originally from the Ukraine, then moved to Austria in 2005, where she stayed for a couple of years, then went after her degree from the London School of Economics. She went into consulting for several years before founding a startup company called Wunderkind Robo Wunderkind, and she even won some awards. This is with this startup company, and in today's talk, we'll learn about their journey and how they made decisions in this difficult path of founding a company in the EdTech sector. So I think we'll learn about the product, we'll learn about the startup, we'll learn about the difficult path of making the right decisions in this challenging efforts. It's wonderful you're here with us today, and we are looking forward to learn something about K-5 education. So now we'll focus on young kids and how to inspire them using technology and learning about technology and programming. Thank you for being here with us and sharing your talk with us. After today's keynote, as always, there'll be a keynote conversation. So maybe there's room for a couple of questions directly after the talk, but then afterwards, you're all very welcome to also join the keynote conversation to really have an in-depth talk with Anna. Thank you so much.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vienna. This is my home base. So I was really pleased to get an invitation to a conference, which is in my home place. And I'm very happy to meet so many people from all over the world. So Robo Wunderkind started 9 years ago, and we started with a robot prototype. Today, we are a comprehensive STEM program for K-5, and just now I realized that K-5 is a very American concept, and I need to explain it's elementary school. So it's kindergarten and the first 4 grades of school. And I would like to take you today with me on our journey, how we started, what kind of decisions we had to take, and what factors influenced us to get to where we are now. And where we are now, we're actually focusing on the US market, and in September, starting September, there will be 11,000 children starting with Robo Wunderkind in the US, and I'm very proud to share that 70% of those students are in Title I schools. And Title I schools are schools with children from lower socioeconomic background, and I'm really happy that something I've been working on for so long time has a positive impact on students which really deserve this. So just a quick overview so that you again know what we are talking about. It is modular building blocks. Kids as young as 5 years old can use them to build a robot, which they can later program. So we designed also programming app, which has 3 different programming interfaces for different ages and for different abilities, like coding abilities. And then we supported it with a curriculum, which is standards aligned and very important teacher training. And so we started with a robot prototype. Now we have like this quite complex, sometimes when I tell someone else in startup world what our product is, they say like, isn't it too much? I'm like, yeah, that's what we need in education. But so yeah, why we started. Actually, we were like at the very beginning, we were 3 founders. So myself, coming from a business consulting background, and my 2 co-founders, which I also tell you about, where I think like what was moving us, we wanted to make the world of technology accessible. So we saw it's changing very fast, it's influencing, it's changing everything, like the way we work, the way we learn, and we were asking ourselves, how can we make this accessible to children? And then, of course, everyone had their own personal connection to this topic. So myself, I was annoyed why, and I discovered the world of technology and engineering for myself through consulting in my late 20s. And I was really annoyed why I never considered engineering as a career path for myself. I was like, why I could never imagine me being an engineer? Like, this is not logical. I was so good in math. Like, I could have been doing this as well. And I thought like, okay, actually like there is something wrong in education, and like reflecting on my own school, I remember this computer science club, which was run by a male computer science teacher who obviously preferred interacting with boys. So I really like felt like this is not something I can be part of. Oh, thank you. So my two co-founders, Rustem and Yuri. Rustem was a computer science dropout at that time. So he started studying in Vienna University of Technology and found it very boring. And he was like, yeah, actually, I want to do something, and it's like all very theoretical, and I'm just not enjoying it enough. And maybe like the higher education was just not for him, but it was also something he wanted to change. When he was telling someone else, like, I'm studying computer science, everybody was looking at him like you are a geek, you know, it's something I can never do. And he was also like, come on, like, it's not that difficult. Like, anybody could be creative with technology, especially with the tools that are available these days. And then our third co-founder, Yuri, was a designer, and he was a self-taught designer, and he really enjoyed teaching himself new skills, and he enjoyed helping others learn new skills. And because again, like with YouTube, with different blogs, like there is so many things you can learn by yourself. He was like, okay, maybe we can help also children learn by themselves and discover the world of technology. So that's how we started. And we started with, back in 2014, we started with a very basic prototype. You know, it looks not very much like this. So it's really fun to remember what it looked like at the beginning. But with this very basic prototype, we made a video about our idea. And like the idea was like, we want to help children as young as 5 years old to be creative with technology. We made a video, and we submitted it to an idea competition, which we won together with a prize of $10,000. And we were like, oh my gosh, we just started, and actually people like our idea. So it gave us like really a confidence boost that this is something worth creating. So we moved to our first so-called office. It was a hacker space in central Vienna, in the first district. And yeah, to those who can relate, like it's a very central Vienna, so very expensive real estate. But then there was like in the basement, there was a huge space for hackers. And we really liked the community there because so their thinking was infrastructure has to be available. And we were able to use their 3D printers, their CNC machines for a very small fee or even like a donation. And space was also open 24/7. So obviously, like there was someone who was following, like making sure that people were following the rules. But it kind of like again like helped us thinking about what it means, like that. Like the true believers in their technology and its positive abilities, they also want it make accessible to people. So we started tinkering there, and like, yeah, we also were always coming early in the morning, and it was mostly very empty in the morning because most of the people hackers would join in late afternoon or at night. So we had the space, a lot of times we had it for ourselves. But then we were actually, like the big question for us was, how will our robot look like? And we were thinking, okay, we want to make the world of technology friendly, accessible. So we were thinking, and especially you see like this is Yuri, our designer, very young back then. He was, okay, we want to create a very friendly robot. And this friendly robot will look like, yeah, we're thinking about an animal, about a human with a friendly face. But then there was another like idea. Actually, maybe we want children to build a robot. And we spent a lot of time discussing, should it be a one-piece friendly robot or should it be a modular robot? So the factors are like one-piece robot can be done so much cheaper. And we were thinking, okay, if we want to get out and impact a lot of children, the product has to be, like on a lower price level. But then it is a one-piece robot which you just take out of the box and it's already done. But if you have a modular robot, you have to build it, and it's so much more exciting to build your own robot, right? So okay, but like it sounds really fun, but how much will it cost? And we were kind of like, oh, maybe like, and of course you don't know how much it will cost at the very beginning. So it was like a huge decision for us, and we were like discussing it back and forth. And at the end we said, no, actually we really want children to build their own robots because it gives them a sense of creation. I created my robot. I'm programming not some robot out of the box, I'm programming my robot. And you can also change it and expand. So we said, okay, we're going for a modular robot. And this decision was actually like a lot of pain in the ass later on, but we never regretted it. Why? Because, so here you see 4 different projects which are done with just a couple of same modules, which demonstrate different types of motion. And this is something which is at the core of our STEM program, that you can build different types of robots. There is no one right way. You can always take it apart and put it back together. And also with different elements, you can create like really, really fun things which connect to a lot of topics from science, from math, and yeah, like other interdisciplinary topics. But the downside, it's expensive in production, and it almost killed us in COVID times. No, it actually almost killed us twice. First time when we did Kickstarter and we're working on modular design, it took us a long time, and we thought like, okay, when will we finally be ready with this design? And second time in COVID times, when everything, like all electronics price went up, we had to completely redesign our robot because otherwise we were not able to produce it. It was just not viable price-wise. So big price we had to pay for a modular design, but again, I think we don't regret it. So once we realized we're going for a modular robot, and like a modular robot assembly is also very complex because basically each module has different inside, different components inside, which means it has different assembly instructions. And of course, we would love to produce somewhere close to home, makes so much sense, but somewhere close to home means like we need to work with an assembly line which is automized, like robotics, robots building products. But if the product has 15 different types of modules, it just becomes not viable to train a robot to build 15 different types of components together, or like basically each module is like a separate product. And we were like, okay, this is not happening in Europe, not viable, too expensive, labor is very expensive, so we need to look at direction Asia. And yeah, sitting in a hackerspace in Vienna, I was like, okay, so now we have to produce in China. Very interesting, how do we do that? And then we found a talk by Cyril. So he's a founder of the first hardware accelerator. Cyril is also like a partner in a VC company, which is coming from Silicon Valley, of course, but also with an Irish, very successful entrepreneur as a founding partner. So they opened the first hardware accelerator in Shenzhen, China. And that's where we applied. So, okay, Shenzhen is apparently a capital manufacturing of the world. So we applied for this hardware accelerator and were accepted. And then we had 3 weeks to move. It was also kind of like, okay, now in Vienna, in 3 weeks, we need to be in China and we need to organize everything. It worked out. It was was a big change. Like China was a different universe in many senses. But so what was really helpful for our journey, for what we were doing, Hack's office is based in Huaqiangbei, which is a district in Shenzhen where almost every building is a supermarket for electronics. It's mind-blowing, like in Vienna, you can go to Naschmarkt and build some exotic things, food and other things. There you can go into a building where you can buy any type of electronic components in different quantities. And so what it helped us, in the morning, like first half of the day, we could come up with some ideas, like what kind of components we could test, what kind of functions we could add to the product. That around midday, we would go to the supermarket, we would buy those components, and in the afternoon, we could put them together and potentially even test. And that was like so much of speed, which we won, was like really, really super helpful. And also, coming from Europe, like here we take time to develop things, and like sometimes it just, like you're more relaxed. In China, like just the speed of things, like the speed of everything happening was so fast that we were also kind of like, okay, wow, we can move really fast. People expect us to move fast, like so let's make it happen. But here you see a silicon. So this is a prototype which was actually made 1 year after we participated in an accelerator. Why? Because 2 designs in between just didn't work. So we would, like testing, putting it all together, testing again, and then at some point you go to the factory and you ask how much it would cost in production, and like just too expensive, or not viable, or too complicated, or like there's too many mistakes. And you're like, okay, going back, working on the design. So at some point we like also learned that it's really crucial to work very closely with your factory in the process so that they can get early feedback, they can give early feedback, and that you don't spend too much time on the design, which will be at the end very expensive. I know it's probably like surprising for you that I'm talking so much about the price, but of course, like this is a core question. Is this product ever going to be viable to produce? Because like we can put so much thinking into the design, but if we cannot produce it and sell it at the price which makes sense, it's not going to be make sense at all. So this is silicon, like prototype produced with silicon molds. We could produce only 20 to 50 robots with the molds, and then we had to go for the real ones. But it's a bit. For the real ones, we had more funding, and the question was, okay, so where do we get funding? Of course, like funding investors, logical, but investors also want to know either a demand for this type of product. So that's why we decided to, in parallel we were building community. We were of course testing our prototypes with users, and we were connecting with the people in the field and working on the same topics. And here you see also a photo of Derek Breen, who is the author of Scratch for Kids. And like why we were like, so of course it was important to test with users so that we get insights for our product development. It was also important to build a community around our product, around our mission, because we wanted to do a Kickstarter. And so Kickstarter is a platform where you can present your idea or like your early product and then offer people a possibility to pre-order it. And by pre-ordering it, they give you money, and then with this money, you can actually produce your product. So that was the idea, but it's not like you just launch there and nobody knows you before launch, and then you launch and everybody knows you. No, like you need to build a community in advance, and that's what we were also working on. And then we had a lot of luck. We got into TechCrunch Disrupt, which is a startup competition in San Francisco. It's amazing because it's organized by TechCrunch, which is a huge media, and they of course write about everyone who is part of that competition. So we were like, this is a perfect timing for our Kickstarter. We're gonna launch. And then what happens? The prototype, beautiful one produced with silicon molds, gets stuck in the customs. So it was sent from China to Hong Kong, and then it gets stuck in the customs, spends a couple of days. And we were like, okay, we have our TechCrunch Disrupt stage moment, and we have no prototype, so what do we do? And like it got stuck because somebody put it in a container with some pharmacy, like we don't know, like basically it was stopped by customs, and they were like checking everything which was in the same container. So we had like so little time that the only possibility to get it was to fly to pick it up. And I flew from Vienna to Hong Kong, from Hong Kong back to Europe, and from Europe to San Francisco. And then my luggage got stuck. So here I am wearing actually dress, like everything you see on me besides jeans is from my co-founders because like I arrived without the luggage, but luckily I had the prototype in my hand luggage. So that was helpful. And so we are launching, and it starts like we're getting supporters, so it is going, but it's not like, we're not, sometimes, some Kickstarter campaigns get to 1 million, we are reaching our goal of 50,000, like hoping to do more, so keeping like meeting more people, presenting our product, so like we had 30 days of Kickstarter campaign to motivate people to pre-order our product. And then like some magic happens. Like it's also like really nice to have some magical moments where, I don't know, universe helps you. So Kickstarter team decided to include us in their newsletter, which goes to a lot of people. And so one day we went to sleep, and then we waking up in the morning, And we have 200,000 raised on Kickstarter because so many people opened newsletter, liked our product, and supported. And those were people from 56 countries. So we were like, wow, now we have people who know Robo Wunderkind in 56 countries. And yeah, that's a great feedback. So people are really wanting such product, and we have funding to start production. Yeah, so like this is us actually, again, in MetaLab, in the hackerspace. We did on CNC machine, like the Kickstarter, we love you. Very memorable moment with positive emotions. But now with the funding, we go back to China, and we need to actually produce. And we thought, like, so presenting the product on Kickstarter, we thought, like, you know, we already tested so much, we will be done in a year. In fact, it took us 2 years. And it was also, again, like, our engineering team was living in China. Myself, I went for 4 months to China in the final stages of production because, like, everybody was like, we finally need to make it happen. And the big problem we had was the modular design. So we had so many plastic parts and like these 15 different types of cubes with different inner design. And yeah, it was like with the world being so digital, actually sometimes you really forget how like producing something physical exactly the way you want is really difficult. And so like those, what you see here, it's injection molds, like they're super heavy, produced out of metal, and basically like it's like a pressing liquid, they're pressing out plastic parts out of liquid plastic, out of liquid material. And they take a long time to produce and a long time also to change. So basically you produce them, you test, you see you need a couple of changes, and then it takes months to make the change. And then you again produce, test, another month. So it took us 1 year to finalize plastic parts, and we were like already tearing our hair out, modular design. This is really tough. But anyway, so finally we got there. But actually, of course, there is more people on the team. There is not just engineers, there is also people working on the design, and like the questions we had to answer for ourselves. So what is actually, how will our design be helping children as young as 5 years old to learn basics of robotics and coding? And so what we introduced color logic. So we said like, okay, colors is what all kids love. So what we want children to learn? We want to learn that every cube has a different function, and that some functions come from the same family of functions. So for example, here you see the cubes which are currently available. And the color logic works as follows. So for example, we have a number of sensors, and all sensors have red color. We have motors, and like usually we include more than, like we include 3 motors in our set, because it's really like you need 2 motors to drive and 1 motor for a rotating head or like some rotating element or moving element. So we have blue motors. Then we have the yellow ones, like the RGB light has a yellow, is yellow from there. On the bottom, so like the yellow category is for light functions and the block is orange. So that was like, we were thinking, okay, we will communicate the function through color. And then we also, because the next step, it's not just about building robots, it's about also programming it. So we wanted to design our own programming interface. The inspiration we got, and the question for us was, again, like 5-year-old children, they're not fluent in reading yet, so how do you program at this age? So the inspiration we got was from state machines concept. I think that some of you know it, or most of you know it. So basically, it's a high-level computational, high-level programming. It's a computational concept where all machines like can be, basically the working of machine can be represented by a diagram where like there is different states, and transition from one state to another happens either automatically when the previous state was already finished or based on some condition. So we thought this is actually really helpful, very visual, and yeah, it gives an understanding that a lot of things which happen, or like most of the things which happen, are a process. So here you can see, like this is a state machines, but you can, I think this particular diagram is for making a paper for a client, but you can also apply it for writing a research paper where you start with a draft. At some point you have like people reviewing it, requesting the change. Then you need to go back and like adjust the draft, then again review. At some point you're ready to submit, and then the client can either decline or approve and so on. So this was our inspiration for our programming interface. And that's how we designed our programming interface. So this is a robocode developed by us based on the state machines, and we use the same color logic. So all actions which are in blue are connected to motion, to motors. All actions in orange are connected to sounds. This is main block making sounds. Yellow actions are light, connected to light. So this was our way to approach to solve how can we intuitively help children learn what is what the modules are doing and what kind of actions are possible in coding interface. And then the red ones are conditions, because it's sensors, it's input, and based on the input, robot can decide whether they are transitioning to the next state or waiting for this condition to be fulfilled. But then while testing it, we realized, no, actually, we see like there is one step. We need one step before that, because it is super simple. It doesn't require reading skills, but it's still not that simple. So we developed one more interface. We call it programming interface, but like strictly speaking, it's not really programming. It is direct control, but it can be adjusted. So here in this interface, and like their app always recognizes what kind of modules are attached and shows on the side what kind of actions are possible. And then children can drag and drop them. And if in RoboCode, they can drag and drop them to create a coding sequence, here it is a customizable control dashboard, also using the same color logic with blue for motors, yellow for light, red for sensors. And then children can just by tapping observe what function is happening. And so we developed this interface in order to help children to actually first learn how certain actions connect to certain modules, and then like the coding would be the next step after that. I know, of course, because we were thinking like with so many functions we included, this product can be used by different age categories. So how do we get, and like we also observed that there is a huge learners variability. Some children are just so fast, and we were okay. Like we want to offer them something where they can like strive for, and we added also Scratch programming as a third programming interface. So we would recommend our remote control app for ages 5+, visual programming for 6+, and Scratch programming for 8+. Okay. So while we were designing the programming interfaces, finally our products were ready to be shipped to 56 countries, which shipping them was a different story, because we had to learn the hard way how high custom fees are in some African countries and in some South American countries. But that was part of the game and of the learning process. And then, okay, next learning experience. A lot of our Kickstarter users were families. And it did, and we also like a lot of families we tested during development were engaged parents who were kind of like, you're developing a robot, come to me, we will test the robot. So what we learned that we actually were somewhat skewed in our perception of parents wish to engage with the learning of their children because basically most of our Kickstarter backers and most of our early users, like early testers, were parents who really enjoy spending time with their children, helping them to learn. But this is not representative of all parents out there, because once we started selling the product on Amazon and on our website, and people started buying it for Christmas as an expensive product, some parents were kind of like, do you expect me to do anything? I expect just to put it in front of my child and it works. And it was really difficult to make it work for a 5-6-year-old child. When we are not there, it's a physical product, something in the process of building can be, like maybe you just need to attach it better. So yeah, we realized actually like we have somewhat of a problem because our product works ideally for a subsection of parents who ready to actually, who either already like understand a lot or like they enjoy themselves engaging with robotics and coding, but it's really difficult to make it work for any parent, and especially for parents who sometimes expect it to like see it as a toy, and toy, again, something I had to learn, and like it's maybe logical. Back then I wasn't a parent myself, but like some parents want to buy a toy, just give it to a child and get some, you know, quiet time, which is absolutely like very much deserved, but it's a problem for learning products, or at least for a learning product which wants to help children learn coding and robotics at a young age. Luckily, at the same time, we started getting more and more demand and interest from educational institutions. So educational institutions, again, we were based exclusively in Austria back then. And here you can also travel. So we would travel to a Hungarian kindergarten, to some schools in Germany, to some schools in Belgium. So we were learning, again, just from the experience, how difficult the educational systems are and how different also approach to technology in school. Because, so to give you an example, we had also some early users from Hong Kong, and they're like, you know what? Our students are doing Scratch with 7 years, so we're gonna do yours with 4 years. And we were like, we don't think it's a good time, like it's too early, like 4 years is, so our educators in the team, they were like, no, you don't do that with 4-year-old children. They're too young for you know, like abstract thinking, for understanding state machines. But then if we would go to Austria and Germany, here they would be, this is a this is a programming device. We don't have devices in our school at all. We have it only in the middle school. Like, let's do that in the middle school. We're like, oh my gosh, like we're like, there is a lot to learn and to understand. But what we immediately realized that actually without a curriculum, it will not work, because a teacher in the elementary school, very often they're like, oh, I love, so what they really liked about the product, because elementary school puts a lot of focus on play and on, you know, like having fun. They really liked to introduce like some playful elements in their school daily life. But then it would be workshop, 1 or 2 times workshop. If it had to be, and like our, of course, aspiration was that they would use it over a longer period of time so that there is more learning happening, they needed a curriculum. So we were like, okay, now we have a robot. We put so much effort into designing a modular robot. Now we need to develop a curriculum. And so we started also like in parallel while we were finalizing everything in China, we were like already developing the curriculum. But then again, like the curriculum was, so for which country do you do the curriculum? Because there is so many like different countries, so many countries are interested in our product. So at the end, we did a co-curriculum which was more focused on computer science and robotics. But then there is not so many countries who have computer science and robotics in elementary school. Back then it was Britain who introduced it very early, but to a different, with a different extent of ambition. Depending on the school, and most of other schools were, okay, actually I don't have a computer science lesson, I have a math lesson, I have a language lesson. So we were like, okay, well, then we are doing interdisciplinary lessons, because from our thinking, like ideally we would like children to do projects, okay, project-based learning, that's what we like really liked and believed. And so we were, okay, like we'll do like our interdisciplinary lessons more in form of projects, and we will try to connect them to different school lessons. So that was our approach back then. And then after school activities, summer camps, workshops. Okay, so we put, we had already back then 80 plus hours of activities. So what we learned next? We learned that teachers are afraid of technology. So, we have a curriculum, so like a principal of the school can like tick the box, we have like their curriculum they can use. But then elementary school teachers like very skewed towards female population. And then we get into like all these stereotypes, which I also had, that robotics and coding is not something for female representatives of our humanity. And it was like, yeah, we actually need, like, we will not get to a consistent learning and like extended learning if we don't add teacher training and support. So that was our next step, like learning the hard way. We have the robot, we have the programming app, we have curriculum, but we actually need teacher training because it's not, and what we also realize, it is like somewhat similar to what parents think. Parents also just scared to look, sometimes they are scared to look in front of their children to show that they don't know something, which is, yeah, actually like an attitude which we would really like to change, and we are trying to change in our with our product, because we want, like with modular robot, we wanted to show that there is no one right way to build it. Like there is many ways, and like there is everything all mistakes you do, you can just take it apart and put it back together. So don't be scared to experiment. But this is something we're just trying to instill and to help children develop. But what parents and what teachers very often do, they're just afraid to look stupid in front of their students. And that's their perception, that they look stupid. Actually, like the helpful attitude is to acknowledge, I actually don't know how we can solve this problem. Let's think together. But again, this is something which we learned that we need to explain to teachers that you will not be able, with our tool, you will not be able to always know what is happening. And that's not the point. Like, you need to support your students in discovering and experimenting. And if something doesn't work, like, let's discuss why it is not working. And like, maybe it's also a nice learning experience which will come out of it. So we started developing our teachers training and support. And I think now actually for us, it is like 50% of our efforts go in teacher training and support, because without that, we can do nothing. Like, our robot can be super amazing. Our curriculum, which we continue to develop over years, can be super cool. But if a teacher will be afraid to take out the box from the shelf and put it in front of the students, will not get anywhere. And also, what is interesting in the school environment, and again, like it does connect somehow to the parent situation. When families were buying Robo Wunderkind for their children, it's mostly parents who take the decision, and then they sometimes the child gets interested, sometimes not. In a school environment, it's not the teacher who is taking the decision, because they're not controlling the budget. So we need to convince a principal or someone in the school district that this product is worth buying. And then sometimes the teacher just like, oh, okay, we have this product. And so like this is so crucial that we address the concerns of the teacher, because if they don't like the product, they will be like, okay, great, we have a new product. Here is a place for it on our shelf, and we'll never take it out. So yeah, that was our, and that's how we ended up where we are now. So of course, robot is at the core, like robotics product and with programming apps is at the core of everything we do. We support it with a STEAM Hub. It's a platform where we host standards-aligned curriculum. We invest, as you can see, and like this is really like half of our effort goes in capacity building of teachers and helping them conduct evaluation and continuous support. Like we provide continuous support of teachers. So why we say like, so what you can do with the product? You can start really very easy, like it's something as easy as a flashlight project. So you can program your robot. I press the button, light goes on or light goes off. You can build a driving robot, you can build a friendly robot. What it is in the learning, like in our idea of what children learn. So with the flashlight, something very easy, it is about showing like what is possible. It's something you build, you program, and something will happen. So this is about excitement, this very early excitement. But then in the next step, we do have projects where children actually need to think about what kind of constraints they have and what they need to do to get to this certain goal, so that they need to learn design thinking skills, and so in order to build a driving robot, because it's all modular, and quite often they start, so we have like on our motors, we have one side which is moving, but sometimes they would put it like that, and then they would put a wheel here, and it will drive, but it will drive in a circle. And this is like, it's an amazing learning experience, because yeah, it does drive. Does it do what you wanted it to do? Did you want to drive it in a circle, or did we want to drive it straight? So if we wanted to drive it straight, let's make another effort, another go at building it. And then the third stage of is about once children are comfortable with programming and building, and this is like, of course, the best stage, and like where we want them to really get, they understand how it works, and now they can come up with their own projects. Our product is also Lego compatible and like Lego Technic compatible, so they can add a lot of mechanical parts. And like the kind of projects we see is like, so of course, like the most difficult ones, or like the most complex ones, are happening either at home when children have a lot of time, or at a school where they can use it over many weeks. But we saw like a cat feeder project. We saw like there's a lot of projects with like drawing, where you can program a robot to draw over a longer period of time something by driving around. Yeah, but this is that's where we want them to get to, just coming up with their own ideas, because like actually coming up with your own idea and like having your own motivation to do something is the key for the best learning. Yeah, STEAM Hub, like always thinking about how we can support teachers, library of lessons, on-demand PD training, like something they can watch online, and assessment tools. And right now it's mostly assessment, so we provide the guidelines how teachers can assess the progress of their students, but it again actually puts quite a lot of pressure on a teacher. So this is also like the point where we, like for future development, so we from, like, if you remember, Kickstarter, 56 countries on Kickstarter, focusing on schools still being based in Austria, we had and we still have a lot of schools in Europe using our product. But right now, with our comprehensive program where we provide teacher training, where we provide curriculum subscription, we're focusing on the US market with that program. And right now, like those 11,000 students, 70% in Title I schools, is actually our progress on the US market. So, and most of our users, interestingly, are in North Carolina. Like it just happened this way. So Winston-Salem, Guilford, Nash County, Beaufort County. So I was really, like, it was fun to to connect to a couple of people from our organization who are also from North Carolina. I was like, wow, somehow this is a place to be for us. But of course, we want to expand to other states as well. And like the complexity of like what we're doing on the US market and like how we see ourselves, we actually see ourselves as a partner for school districts to help them achieve their STEM goals. So first we need to convince the school district that they give us a possibility to do that, but then we need to work with teachers by providing the teacher training and continuous support. And then we provide the resources for students. So it is kind of like a lot of stakeholders in the process. So what we are going to work next, impact evaluation to actually help teachers. Like, so we're adding already in this fall the first elements of, okay, you can call it automated impact evaluation, but it's about adding coding challenges and problem-solving challenges in the app so that we can collect the data on how children progress and where like there are gaps, and then we can prepare this data and share it with the teachers so that they can understand better where's everyone on the learning journey. And then the other part is also, so we are adding a collaborative robotics functionality. So like right now, it is a set of building blocks where usually 2 to 3 children are working with one set in a team, and it's also part of like our learning experience. All curriculum is designed for teamwork. But then our next step, collaborative robotics functionality, means all robots within one classroom can interact. So children can work together and create robots which interact with each other. So it's not just one group, but it can be like the whole classroom. So for example, a good example is a smart city, so where you build a number of tracks which are going along the way, and then they need to react to street lights or pedestrians, or yeah, some other sensors. Yeah, and I'm actually coming to the end. Yeah, so that was, like, we started with a very easy, basic robot prototyped. Through our learning experiences, we came from, like developing the product, shipping it to a lot of families, learning. And I still, like, you can do amazing learning experiences for the use at home. It just was really difficult with our robotics product because it has a learning curve, and it can work with a very engaged parent. It is really difficult to create a learning journey which doesn't involve a parent. And then focusing completely on our school experience and expanding to not just being a robot, like that's where we started, but now we are a partner for school districts to achieve their STEM goals. And it's our big honor to support teachers on that journey. And with half of the team now being a educator success manager, so like we're all about making teachers succeed. Yeah, and like keeping developing the product in a way that it supports students' learning journey, but also teachers. So teachers are super important, and like it's always like a discussion: AI will replace teachers, but we are kind of like, we're working with the youngest children. Why we're working with the youngest children? Because we believe that they are we know that they're more open to learning new things, and also we are creating at a young age the attitudes which we want, like positive STEM attitudes. And that's where we believe we can make most impact. So physical play will be not replaceable at this age. We want to integrate ChatGPT in some form for our products for teachers. Of course, like we want to actually, maybe like their AI training for very young children, we will be integrating, because with sensors you can train your own model where you need to actually give feedback. So like, for example, like there is a light sensor, but then you need to, like the machine doesn't know anything. So you can teach a machine, like this is a lot of light, this is less light, this is night, this is day. So we want to have like this type of elements in our product, but we will never replace a teacher. We believe we will never be able to replace a teacher in creating this very collaborative learning environment, and also a learning environment where children need to work in groups with each other, and where they will be also getting live feedback from teachers. So that's why working on supporting teachers, not creating virtual teacher yet. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like AI at some point will be very emotionally empathetic. Yeah, and also, because I know there is a lot of researchers in the audience, we are planning impact evaluation studies in the US. So if anyone is interested in collaborating, please come talk to me. This is my contact details. You can always find me also on LinkedIn. Thank you for having me.